Welcome to Yoga Chats with me, your host, Greg Walsh. Today, my guest is Dearbhla Glynn. Dearbhla and I go way back. I was thinking about it earlier, maybe 15 years. We're pals, Dearbhla. So Dearbhla, you're really welcome to Yoga Chats.
Oh, thanks for having me, Greg.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
Yeah, at least 15 years, I would say.
Possibly closer to 20.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, in the time I've known you, Dearbhla, you, in a way, I could say you've lived many lives. I've known you as a filmmaker, as an artist, and of course as a yoga teacher, which in a way is why you're on today. But tell me about your pre-yoga life and your besides yoga life.
Mm-hmm. Yes, well, before I became a yoga teacher, I made documentaries for a really long time. So I was making films over at Burning Man and in Mali and focusing a lot on arts-based cultural films. And then for about 10 years, I worked in conflict. So I worked in Gaza, Iraq, Eastern Congo, and making a very interesting life, traveling all the time, meeting amazing people. Definitely, it was challenging work. And at that time, I was practicing yoga a lot, always at Samadhi, I think, in your gorgeous yoga studio, which was like a real sanctuary to me, actually. And, I think it was an exciting life and I loved it and it was very interesting, but it was also challenging. So yoga was a big part of my life also, which grounded me and I think helped me to do that work. But I never thought I'd become a yoga teacher at that time, so it's funny.
And are you still involved in that work?
I do some lecturing around gender and conflict, and some of the films I made were about sexual violence in Eastern Congo. So I did, and I also did a master's in development during that time. So I was, I suppose, my work became quite specialized, and I still do some lecturing. I would love to continue making films, but I think I needed a bit of a break from constantly traveling and making documentaries, and that break led me to teaching yoga full time and starting to teach retreats, and so I went from war zones to a yoga studio, which was kind of lovely.
That is, yeah, that's quite a jump. That are two very different worlds, aren't they? So. And then you moved over to, you're living in County Clare. So, I think our experience together is yoga has always been very community based. And certainly, as you were saying, practicing in Samadhi. Samadhi is very, it's not so much about the space. I try and keep a lovely space, but it's about the people who then come into that space and bring that space to life. Mm-hmm. And so have you found a yoga community over? How long are you living over there now?
It's 4.5 years now. Yeah, so it'll be 5 years next March.
Okay. Yeah. And have you found your yoga community in County Clare?
Yeah, I definitely have. There's an incredible community here. And there's a lot of people are very, they surf, they grow food, they're interested in yoga, they're musicians, they are amazing chefs, so that's my community over here, and it's a very supportive community. So a lot of people will join yoga classes or yoga retreats, but also, during the pandemic, which feels like, a really long, I suppose it's 20 months now, I found this really engaged online community, and I think that online community really supported me through the pandemic also. So that would be people in Clare, and then that was people all over Ireland, all over the world, actually.
Yeah, the online yoga medium has been, I've talked about it on the podcast before. It was an absolute lifesaver for me as well, because I rarely left the house. I mean, I went out for walks, I went out to buy food, I went to a neighbour I kind of look after a little. I would leave the house for that, but not for yoga, but everyone kind of virtually came over to the house, and it felt like the community lived on despite all of us being so much shuttered away. So for me, it was a great blessing.
Yeah, likewise. I mean, I say it to people all the time, but I can't even express how grateful I was to have that connection. And it really felt like connection, you know, even though it was online, it still felt like a proper, genuine connection.
Yeah. I found people were coming regularly, so we could really work as well. We could really progress. Yesterday we did this, today we're doing that, as opposed to people just dropping in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. It was and is, to be clear. I'm still working away. Are you still teaching online?
Yes, I mean, I know it. Like it was such an interesting time for yoga and online and in person. And there's a whole debate now about in person going back to studios. And I still, and I always actually loved online, and I still love it because, you know, there's some people that join my practices that, you know, are in France or in, you know, different parts of the world. And so for me, it's opened up the whole world. And I love that. And I still love peering into people's homes. And, you know, for my yin practice, you know, the stove is on and they're lying there really cozy. And it's like, it's so lovely. And for me, it's very rewarding. And likewise, like I can join your class, you know, like that was, for me, was amazing because when I moved to Clare, like I really missed going to your class and a few other teachers that I went to, you know, I couldn't go to anymore. So then I was like kind of going, God, this is great. You know, I can join your class like twice a week, you know, and it just became so much more the reach, you know, the accessibility was kind of exciting. So I hope that does continue. You know, I'm excited. I love teaching in person. And I taught a day retreat last weekend, and it was just gorgeous, you know, to teach in person. But I also love the online. Yeah, so I hope it does continue.
Well, yeah, for you, like I always, to reciprocate, I love seeing you in class. It's always, Dearbhla's in class. So, and you're always, I have to say, I don't know if this is a big thing, but for me it is, you're so polite. You'll always email me in advance saying, I'm coming to class, but up to least 10 minutes early. Because I don't think people realize sometimes, because for me, I have a setup for teaching that I can see everyone really clearly. And if someone skips off early, I do notice. And I'm like, you know, Irish Greg is very much, oh, did they not like the class?
Yeah.
Did I offend them? You know, there's that. But you're always, I'm like, okay, Dearbhla's going to head off in a couple of minutes. And so I really appreciate that.
Yeah, well, likewise. But it's because if I'm teaching and you suddenly notice that like a screen disappears or somebody's gone, I'm like, are they okay? You know, like, you know, is everything okay? Did they not like the practice or did they injure themselves? Or, you know, so yeah, I suppose it's like I would feel the same way. So.
Well, thank you for your politeness. And it's always lovely to see you in class. It's really great. So sometimes I see you in class and think, Dearbhla can do all this stuff so well. Why is she in my class? But,
oh, no, but it's never, I mean, joining a class, like I would never do, like even I think the last class I joined with you was such deep work in the shoulders, you know, and of course, you know, I have my practice that I like to do, but I always do the things that I like to do, you know, and like when it's like a little bit strong, I'm like, okay, I might do that, but sometimes I'll be like, I'll back off. Whereas, you know, I know if I'm going to join your class, I'm like, okay, I'm going to go deeper than I would in my own practice generally.
Okay, well, and you know I won't let you back off. That's my job. So we're talking about your community over there, and your website is actually mindoneanother.com. Mm-hmm. So tell me, what's the thinking behind that?
Well, I made an installation. It was first, I think, at the Body and Soul Festival in the Woods. And it was just a sign, like I do make art installations and I'm still involved in art projects, which I love and really feeds my soul. And it was just the words, mind one another. And, you know, I suppose in Ireland we say all the time, I am always saying to people, mind yourself, mind yourself. I grew up listening to that. And there is something about community, like mind one another, mind yourself and mind one another. And And I do think, we are all connected, and, through minding yourself, you also mind one another. And, I love those words and what they mean. So I've used those words in different places and photographed them. And at Body and Soul, we used it, like thousands of people took photos of themselves under the sign. And then there was like a hashtag mind one another. And it was just a really lovely, positive thing. When people go to festivals, it's important that people do mind one another, and at all times, And then through the pandemic, it took on a greater meaning, where just, look out for one another, engage, even though we're holding isolation, check in with people. It was a really challenging time for people. So I suppose the words mean so much to me. I'm really interested in mental health and how people look after themselves and look after one another. And just, I was very aware through the pandemic that people were isolated. And I was, worried about people, to be honest, So I used that term a lot. And then I kind of decided I wanted to call the website, and I was a bit like worried about it. Was it a bit cheesy, or, and then it just kept coming up. So I just decided to call the website Mind One Another.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's lovely. No, it's not. It's so not cheesy. I think it's very you. It's very kind, and it's very sincere. My kind of business head would be thinking, so this is coming from the man whose website is samadhi.ie, which is a search engine optimization nightmare. I would be thinking, would you not be better with, Dearbhlas yoga or something, Dearbhla Glynn yoga? But I think you have that as well, and I think it feeds people over to mind one another.
Yeah.
But it's a lovely, lovely sentiment, and I think it would really resonate with people over the last 20 months and probably for the foreseeable future. So, Dearbhla, retreats are a large part of your yoga offering these days. Tell me how you got into it, and what's your focus?
So I began teaching full-time yoga, and everything just flowed. I started teaching a lot, and absolutely loved it. And then when I moved to Clare, I was offered a job at the Cliffs of Moher Retreat Centre to teach as their resident teacher. So to teach full time. So it's an extremely beautiful place. I was really happy to teach there, and it was a great, intensive learning. To hold a space for people to come and to practice yoga, to meditate, and to just come to a place of deep rest, relaxation. Maybe there's a letting go. It's a beautiful experience, and it's been an amazing journey. And I still am teaching a lot of retreats. And through the pandemic, I was teaching online retreats, which worked really well. I was so surprised. People really loved them. And
it makes so much sense to me. I taught a few as well. Mm-hmm. I think through chatting to you, and you were saying, I'm doing an online retreat. And I was like, and then I kind of put together a timetable, and for me, a lovely part of a retreat is the community aspect of it. It's like this. It's being able to chat. So for me, making sure that there was a little bit of off the mat yoga time was very important. But people really liked it, and I really enjoyed it. And so, what was your experience? Are you still doing online retreats?
I actually did one for Samhain for Halloween there. A couple of weeks ago, and I was so nervous about it. I mean, I was so nervous about Zoom and everything. When I think of it now, it was like, the technical side of it, and was it going to work? But immediately it worked really well. And the onlines, I was just blown away by the response. The online retreats. It would be, mine was like an evening and a morning, so it was maybe like 5 hours over an evening and a morning. But people really loved them, and it really resonated with people. People just felt really connected to themselves. They themselves were very surprised with how they felt afterwards. And And many of them had been on retreats with me. So they were saying, actually, I really felt like I was just on a retreat with you, you know. So for me, that was really also really exciting, you know. And yeah, I hope to continue them. I mean, obviously, we're back, you know, I'm teaching in-person retreats at Ballymaloe and some day retreats. And that's really nice and really exciting to be teaching in person again. But, you know, we're still in this thing, and there's still numbers are rising. So, yeah, I will continue to offer online retreats and see if people are interested in them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, lovely. Yeah. Yeah, I feel numbers are rising, and some things that I was going to do in studio, I'm doing now again purely on Zoom. I see that in your retreats you use mandalas, and I love mandalas, I love rangolis, I love yantras, I love you know, I love that imagery. So I'm curious about why you do it, what got you into it, what's your thinking?
Mm-hmm. So I love, obviously, working with the seasons. When I teach retreats, you know, I bring in, you know, the seasons, what's happening with the moon, what's happening with the Celtic calendar, and creating a beautiful mandala was something, you know, I mean, I also love being creative. So it just, for me, it's like setting the tone for the retreat, and it's preparing the space for people to arrive into this. It's a sacred space, really, where people are coming to a place of quiet, to, you know, whatever's going to happen over that period of time, that the space is ready for them. So, you know, I'll light sage, I'll light incense, and then I usually have kind of decided, okay, it's autumn, so maybe I'm going to use some autumn leaves and berries and whatever that season provides, and creating something beautiful with candles. It's a center focus for the retreat. And I also make these cards, and I ask everyone to take a card, and if they want to write their intention for the retreat into the card, and then they can either keep the cards or they can place them back into the mandala. And it's like holding the energy of the retreat. And then at the end of the retreat, you know, I clear it all away. So we're creating, or I create that mandala for just that retreat. So yeah, so I suppose it's just, for me, it's like just setting the tone for the energy, and to hold the space for the retreat. In a way, it's like the mandala is holding the space for everyone.
That's powerful. That's really nice. It reminds me of, I remember many years ago, there was some Tibetan Buddhists came over to Trinity and created a mandala. I can't remember what room. I think it was in the Douglas Hyde Gallery. And they spent, have you ever seen the Tibetans created? All created with coloured sand.
Yeah.
They slowly kind of scrape these little things. They look like little kazoos, and drip the sand and create this piece. But then at the end, they have a ceremony. They swept it up and they emptied it into the Liffey. And, but that's it. It's like the energy is created there, and then the impermanence of life, it's gone. But also the energy of the mandala is given to the city, to the Liffey.
But it's the impermanence of it I love. And it reminds me, you know, harking back to Burning Man years ago, and I made a film about Dearbhlas, who made these beautiful temples, which were dedicated to the dead. And they were built, you know, they would take ages, months and months to get ready and build. And then it was only finished for a few days, and then it was burned to the ground. And there was something beautiful about that impermanence, which is, you know, it's life. Life is impermanent, and not holding on to anything, you know, so letting it come and go, and the transience of life, which is, you know, something I adhere to and try and adhere to.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, it's something worth embracing, isn't it? Because it's all of us. Yeah, that is lovely. That is lovely. And yeah, it's funny because I guess that's your old life coming into your new life. Your Burning Man documentary is, in a way, I know it's yoga philosophy as well, but you're very much bringing that kind of impermanence into your main offer, your largest offering, which is your retreats. And by the way, some people who may not know you but have been into Samadhi, we've got some large-scale artworks, and 2 out of the 3 ones are yours, Dearbhla. Of course, we've got a huge Hanuman halfway up the stairs, and we have a stunning Ganesh in the downstairs yoga room, which we call the Ganesh room. Because
so, I haven't seen them in so long. I'm dying to get back up to see them.
Well, it might be a while, but they're there. They're waiting for you. Somebody's still there.
Can't miss them anyway.
So, Dearbhla, it's been a pleasure chatting to you. Thank you so much for taking the time today.
Oh, thank you so much, Greg. It's an honor. And thank you for all your classes and your trainings and everything. I suppose you really led me into my yoga world. So I'm so indebted to you.
Well, I'm very honored to hear that, because it's, as I said, it's always such a pleasure to see you. Your yoga is so inspirational. And it's lovely to see how you have brought yoga into your world and then shared it with so many people in your own unique way. So I, in turn, thank you. So, everyone at home, I'm Greg Walsh. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you can join us for some more yoga chats soon.